couple of updates and reminders, and so for folks who were here last week, was I'm just going to repeat it for you guys who weren't here, just to make sure everybody's on the stage. Did everybody come up and come in? So next, or is it 2 weeks from now, our last class already, our 8 presentations. Everybody knows that that's happening. There's no feeling that, but we do need to have everybody, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that at the end of this session, but just make sure you're planning to be here that night. The host meeting has been confirmed, and that is mandatory because we've got hosts traveling here to begin with, but we also are to meet all of you in person and want to make sure you're there for that. This is Monday, May 6th. It's going to be a new one, and the election will be announced. It's probably going to be over in the physical sciences building. Posted. We're making progress, but we still don't have the answers. What I was told as my check-in is that the person list is, and there's a new person. So we're going with it, guys. But you can paid, we just don't know the details. No. Yeah. So there's not too much more to share about the pre-internship conversations with hosts, but just so we're here, weren't here last week, know what we talked about is there'll be logistical details that we are that we can email, but we'll wait until after the class or at the end of the class in case any more of these things come up. So in that time period after the class before your internship starts, we'll check in your phone with those. In terms of the community engagement conversation, we're seeing that as a good starting point for when we meet with the host and they're actually in person. More if anybody still has questions on what to cover here. I think the big point is that we do touch base with them about the personal logistics that we talked about, but we don't want to do it over 4 weeks. We're thinking of one more thing that we forgot to ask them. We just want to do it all at once. Questions on the updates or any additional things that you want us to add to this?
I just want to underscore the weekly presentation and the posting again with our mandatory really for a variety of reasons.
So just a reminder that we go through each week of what we've covered so far. Into last week we talked about the community capitals framework. Did you guys get a chance to look at the presentation? Did you recording very well? Or was it so? It was rough, wasn't it? Okay. I felt like it was muffled, but you could hear it. Did you look at the presentation? It was on LinkedIn? Yeah. Was that okay? Okay. If you have questions or something you're wondering about something, let us know and we'll go over it. And it's probably hard to know what you missed in case presentation, what was the subtext, but if you're just saying, can you provide me a little more detail, I'm happy to meet Robin. To meet with you to go over it. Let us know. Okay. So you guys said, okay, what is the community engagement piece really about? What we want to do. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. So you'll remember that it's 8 hours per week. The goal is to have you explore and learn, but the key piece is just collecting information that informs you, your host, your community, and you start that right throughout this process. We've been doing a little bit of research, and we're going to put you more of that. Hoping also that you're building a social network as you start to engage with the community and start to talk to community contacts, and we want to enjoy. And by the end of this, you may say fun and enjoy, given everything that we have to do here. If that's not the case. That's the key part of it too. So, but you're there to do a job. Using the perspective of youth retention and attraction, and again, the purpose is to help you be mindful about the connection between work and play, help you to be thoughtful about what's important to you as a community member, and then again, helping us understand, but you're using a systematic process for doing that. Your end product, it's not just that you're coming up with this idea and this understanding, taking it up here, right? You're going to be putting at the end a poster and then presenting that poster through the form of your following independent study. So you're pulling more pieces together over the summer, and then it will really be during the fall piece that you're putting it all together. Okay.
Maybe to think about your 10-minute presentation in 2 weeks for that, where it's going. And we'll get the pieces for the presentation. But in a roadmap, that's going to result is going to be here.
Your
Destination, right.
We talked about some of these, but I think what we've tried to do this week is really put it down so it's clear how it all fits together. So back in reading, please don't think you're going to have tons of assignments. Like I mentioned, that for each task will be useful as we go through each week. There's a 2-page overview. So that's the extent of your background reading. It's just a reminder of what the focus of that is about. This one we passed out last week was the overview, but there's something like that for each capital. Community capacity assessment, we're going to talk about a tool today we hope will help you get another sense of what of the character of the community that helps us those capitals. As said, community of all of these capitals. The tool that's been built by someone out of the University of Hampshire, working with folks from the University of Maine and the University of Massachusetts, designed communities to be thoughtful about the community holistically in the aspects that they can have to strengthen their community. So that's today, brief, and we will go over that in more detail the first of the summer. Engagement activities, and that's what you've heard us talk the most about without a lot of detail. What are the specific activities that you can got some ideas? We'll share those with you tonight. And then you'll be engaging it with key contacts. And I think the key thing of this tonight is that you've heard us talk about contacts before. And we've talked about over the last week, and we think there's probably different people for the different capitals and different people that are going to want to know about the project and be interested in what you're looking at. So we're hoping you're able to identify a couple different people, maybe 3 or 4 even, depending on the need, that identify, and we're talking with extension directors about who would be some people, and they're giving us more categories of people, but we were on the phone with one today who said, I really think our development office would be interested in this. I think our plan, certainly the mayor would be interested in this. So we're just, but we're trying to identify a few people who can be helpful.
I think one nice thing about this internship, this part of the internship program for you guys too, is that all these official capacity too. I mean, there's been people informally and unofficially, but for exercise that you're going to be doing throughout the summer, I mean, the person you work with at your internship that's going to be connecting with you and maybe giving you good reference. You have no may meet and intersect with, who may help you in your career or otherwise. That's the power of these social work. That this could be a valuable experience for you, each not separate from Amsterdam. It's not the way you might formally think of that. There's richness there that I think you're going to uncover.
In addition to that, we'll be checking in weekly, discussion to help shape those check-in, and we'll have online reflection forum, and we're still, I think, each other and not replicate each other. Now, I will say this probably seems a lot like a lot, but it's Robin's job to make it so it's possible for you to fit it all in the 8 hours without feeling overwhelmed. So that's our job. And and we'll be integrating it, I hope, in a way that does that for you. So don't. So we touched on this in detail last week, but it's just a reminder. So again, this is a way to frame and think about how this is the framework that we're using for you to think about the you're looking at in your community, its assets, its strengths, its weaknesses. That each of the capitals you'll be exploring support an overall community capacity and overall sustainability, what's the vibrancy and the health of that community. It depends on that capacity and its strengths across the community capitals. And then just as a reminder that it all place matters. So I know we've seen that a lot, so I hope it's not like, okay, already, but again, it's really, I think, key to what we're doing. So we just talked a little bit about it, but what are your weekly assignments? But one thing Robin and I also thought would be really helpful, you may even want to start that now if you have free time and want to look at another newspaper. Just to see if you can access the local newspaper online, or even I find it useful to even grab, sometimes there's just weekly other papers, the formal but other newsletters that you might find on newsstands throughout the community, and just use them and see what's on. What are some common themes that you're finding? What are the issues that the community is dealing with? I think it's a way to get to know the community. There's going to be community capacity assessments, right? So there will be 6 surveys, and there's about 15 questions in each section. It's an form that we're hoping to be able to use online, but we'll probably have to plug all of the information in at the end because you can't save it the way this was set up by the University of New Hampshire. And I'll show you an example of that in a little bit, but the 6 sections basically tie into the 7 capitals. So starting point each week, we'd like you to look at, okay, do I know about the community in terms of this effect? Does it have these resources or not? And then what's interesting about that is you're probably going to, you guys are coming at this really and all the stuff that we're doing, but it's not like well, some of you lived in these communities, easier for you guys, but for others that are coming at it more new, fresh perspective, it's probably going to take a little more work to do that. So what we want each week is use that as a starting point, answer what you can from the information that you have or information that you can easily, and then think about somebody that you're going to talk to that week to help you answer the rest of it. And then also, if you can't answer it all that week, it's okay. You'll be safe and hopefully adding to it. So maybe that somebody that you talk to 2 weeks or an activity that you attend 3 weeks later helps inform that particular section of the assessment. Does that make sense? That's too vague.
I don't think it'll make sense for I see it.
I'll
speak for you.
Good. Then activities. So again, we're going to go over those activities in just a little bit, and the form to respond to discussion questions, and then the group discussion. You have to do this to support efforts. I think next week we are going, maybe it was new this week, I can't remember when we talked about it. We're going to send out a media release to the communities that you'll be in so they know you're coming and what you're doing. At least if they newspapers it up. We provide you with a project overview that you can share with the people that you're going to be talking to. There may be IRB forms, and we'll be back to you about that. We'll help you. Your hosts are here, and again, the community contact will be identifying. Will help guide you. And I will say that I talked to the extension director today, and I think we'll be talking to the rest of them over the next week. I think they're to help you and guide you, but I would say with all of these, we're just babies, right? And we're asking you to be self-directed. So we're here to help support you and touch with people, but we'll be looking to you to identify who you think it is that you want to touch base with some of the support and guidance. Okay. going to delve into each week of the summer. So again is an overview. So what we hear August 30th, and then you start about a month, 5 weeks. So touch base again. What is I keep doing that all the time. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Brain with dates lately has been, I always switch August and April. It's just the way I'm prepared. Thank you. So it'd be good to reconnect that first week, and then we'll go into what the summer will entail again in more detail, review it, and start you in that process. So that week we will spend more time than we're going to tonight on that community capacity assessment and walking through. We're going to ask you to decide what activities you'll do each week, and again, we're going to go through some of those tonight to explore capitals. We're going to ask you that first week to identify your community contacts and to insert yourself in the project. So in that first week, you talk to your host, you'll give them some time you want to talk to them, things. You need to call them up or send them an email or whatever, but touch base with them then. In part, the summer, as you guys probably know, is a big vacation time, so it may be that you're thinking, oh, I'll talk to them this week about this capital, and they're not here the week that you're going to be focused on capital, so it'll be good to set a date and time to meet with them early on, or at the very least to say, I'm going to be contacting you over the summer any time. I'd like to talk with you about some of the stuff I'm looking at that would be better than another, just to get on their calendar.
I would also add to that, so I definitely want you to start thinking about some of your community content, as I said, and we're going to help you with that. Extension directors that we're contacting in each of the counties to help identify those. But summer rolls on, so I don't envision that you'll have a list of 30 people you want to talk to the very first week and roll it out. I mean, I think there's going to be planning, then there's going to be an organic element to this. As you're moving through the summer to meet other people, they say, hey, no, you really should talk to her, you really should talk to him, or have you talked that I've been able to think about earlier. So there will be that. So it's not to say that the very first week of the summer, everything should be, has to be, you know, I mean, I think that would be pretty impossible. Plus, you know, I mean, there's going to I still don't know you. So how do you team formula until you start? I think you're investigative reporters in a way.
Through that host, but you'll have an opportunity to get it started, right? Instead of waiting for the call about it intentional. The true invitation, which I think I wanted to take out, but you know, it'll be good that first week we'll just touch base on how that kind of stuff is going. A little bit, because this is student initiated. Your host may not be doing quite the same things that all of the other hosts are doing, I assume, because we're working with CCE, the orientation piece to it. We'll talk about that a little bit, okay? You know, we'll have the forum, and then some of the questions we might be thinking about is, okay, you're here, you're ready to go. What are the things that you're most excited with your learning action plan? What questions you're going to start to address from the list that you've been generating over these weeks, and then who have you identified as a starting point to help you reach out to them. And I want to just add to what Robin said, you know, she's saying you won't have a list of 30. I don't think you'll ever have a list of 30 again, but I think your point is, you know, we're seeing a few in May as you go list that, hey, it'd be really helpful to talk to this person.
Yeah, I think that have sort of a short the starting process. I don't know if we I think we've said this, but I just want to reiterate, maybe you're studying this, so I apologize. But so we have how many capitals? 7 capitals. So again, each week is going to be a different capital area. So it's not everything every week.
Kind of been a summary session, and because the assessment service that we're using, they actually talk about health and well-being, which kind of stands for capital. So I think there's going to be a time, probably around the 4th week, that not a capital that fits with it directly, but you're thinking about all of the capital. But anyway, believe it or not, it works out pretty nicely for the time you got them detailed. So
I think this helps. I can imagine that it might be a little overwhelming looking at all the capital all together. How am I going to wrap my head around this community and all these different aspects? So by kind of clean and so, every week you're just focusing in on one. So hopefully that will
breaks it more manageable.
Understand a little bit more.
It's turned to the sheet that you have tonight, that community engagement scheduling assignments draft only at the top. This is the kind of thing that we were talking about in terms of your engagement activities. And going down to 2, we just kind of talked about what week 1 would be up on the screen, but we didn't plug in the details for each of the different capitals. So we consider, we've provided those, so as you think about these capitals, what are some of the things that we're at, and then we identified some activities here. And even here, I'm not going to read through every single one. I think we will just, at least for this one, and we won't for all of them. You can look at, the point is, here's some ways to go and explore that capital and get to know the community. So visit a local museum to think about the local history or cultural capital. Visit heritage areas or a heritage area in that region. Attend a local festival event. Local citizens, one older and one younger. So these are just different ideas. Again, we are open. These are some that we've just put down as a starting point. If you have other things that you'd like to do, so give us some thought, and that could be also part of that first week where you're going down through and looking at these activities and saying, you know, based on some of the stuff I found, I think it would be really interesting to do this. So anything else that you could think of that you could explore cultural heritage or cultural capital for?
I just feel like just at a farmer market.
That's okay. That would help give you a flavor of the ag aspect of it, and food's great. That's a good idea.
So the idea too is whatever activity you choose, you're going and experiencing it, but you're also collecting information. So you want to either take or then there's questions that Heidi asked that you might want to draw upon for that help. Okay, what further information should I pay attention to? And Heidi, if we want to, let's see, what questions should we had? Maybe it was the end of the presentation. Okay, so at the end of the presentation, Heidi will show you this. We have, so each capital area, some of the questions may differ. They may be very specific for each capital, but there's also a set of questions, I think there's 3 that you'd like you to answer for each one that are common. So there's some that are unique, and then there's some that are common. And again, it's to help you think about how do I get information out of it? Okay, farmer's market, whatever. But that's not really what helps understand this community. Help you pull out that kind of information.
Start to think of this, but hopefully those questions do really unique to this area because of the cultural heritage, and there's an opportunity to have a chili festival every year. So there's something that has got the broader piece, but with thinking by questions to help frame it, it might be just the chili. Right? Go ahead.
We'll be answering this question before.
That's, and I don't think, so there's a huge list. I don't expect you to go in and answer each one individually. We're thinking of these that are with us as more guides. The 4 that we're posting would be the ones that we would be doing on the forum. And we're trying to, I think, figure that out. I think the way at least we're thinking you answer those on the forum so that you're thinking about it as you're going along throughout the week and being reflective. But then we would do the things that you've entered in the forum to have a group discussion on when we meet. So it would be the platform for our discussion. And because you posted it in the forum, we would all have a quick opportunity to just have our conversation. So it's all on the same page and using that as food for thought. The forum does a couple different things. It allows you to be reflective and think about what you're learning while you're doing it. It's also an opportunity to and a record so that later on you can go back and put together your report or thinking about your overall experience. You've got something to reference.
Yeah, I think that's something that I wanted to add to as well, that this summer about recording that. So the forum is a way to do that. But we really need to be doing this anyway. By September is going to be here. You're going to, I can't really remember. People will remember a lot of the details you won't. And it's a way to keep this and it's time anyway.
And if it is clear from what we've just been saying, we did put it at the top of this page, this activity, take notes. And don't feel like that we're asking you to be out there complete this. But even if you go out and experience it, you've been thoughtful because of the questions before you go do your activity. You might carry a notebook with you, but when you get home from that, you just go back and look at the questions. And you're jotting things down just to get that immediate response to what you've experienced. Okay. So turn the page. The next one is the human capital. And the other thing I will say again is that the assessment that we'll be asking you to do before you do the activities at the start of your week will parallel this. Cultural capital and that assessment the first week, and then we'll move into human stuff, or the second week, I guess, we'll move into human capital the third week. So again, do some activities about how to explore human capital. You'll recall last week we talked about the skills and abilities of people, and the opportunities that they have to develop those skills. And so you can do again to explore that just without even looking at that. What might be something that you could do to get a sense of people in there done that might say good about human capital.
Looking at
Right.
better.
I told you a little bit of education level, so that will give you a sense of, have people taken advantage in this region of opportunities and what educational opportunities are they taking advantage of, right?
And these are very interesting access to the community too. So one is the resource that community brings ideas, different talents, skills, and perspectives for the community to take advantage of some way. Two, this is cultivating or hoping to connect your host with community work. So in these areas, and if we have ideas for strengthening one of the areas, wow, each shop might get involved in seeing the Chili Festival every year. Something like that. That there, or because each of the baby food company, I don't know. You just start thinking about, where's some of the natural ways that my host could support their area. I think it's creative. It's going to help them be more connected too.
And that is one of those key questions that we'll be dealing with each week, is what is the connector, if any, that is or could be between somebody and the capital that you're exploring that way. Week 4 is health and well-being, and you'll see that is currently blank because that is direct cap again. I think it crosses all of those. So we're kind of thinking of this as a time to go through the capacity assessment, addressing these questions, but you'll also be relying on all of the other capitals and be exploring. So I think that reference back to this as well. Add a little bit more detail to help support that. But financial capital, again, a little bit about what financial capital was last week. We said they're not always the most obvious sources of funding out there, that sometimes it's free weren't here. It's we talked about a restaurant that got started without being able to get capital out of regular financial institutions by selling off essentially gift certificates, and so people paid 50. We said 5,000. Okay, that was one of them. I was thinking there was one that was smaller, but because I think that was you did dollars. You could get like you got some certificates, and you could get to $100 worth of food over a certain period of time. So anyway, you get the idea. It's not the exact numbers. So we'll go out and try to look at that. And I think what's important too about these questions is thinking about who has access to capital as well. So it's one thing, for example, if financial institutions there that people can get through, but one of the things that you'll hear, for example, in rural communities where a lot of big farmers, one of the big issues there is that they don't quite meet the criteria of traditional financial institutions, and they get the money that they want, or sometimes they even want such a small amount of money that it doesn't fit with the criteria. So it's easy for everybody to get some of the funding that they need.
I think that adds to that too. So the perspective of young, educated workers is actually intense. So you guys, after college, were moving to the community, a first-time home buyer, or as an entrepreneur in small business, or how not, you know, Mr. 55, and that's happening, or how you might not have other options for the working class.
One-time example of the starting point where we were here, that again, you're looking at this through this unique lens or specific lens of youth attraction for all of these as you go out and explore them. One of these activities that we mentioned in this that I'll just point to is to the director of a local or regional community foundation. If you did, and not all areas have community foundations, but what's I think really helpful about that particular contact is because funding initiatives in the community or region through their money. Does everybody know what the community foundation is? So it's essentially it's a funder, grant funder. The way that they do that is they bring in funds from philanthropists or people from the community and different pools often, so they'll target it to different areas. It's based on the board and what they say it's important to fund based on the needs of the community, so it's very, very locally focused. But because they are doing grant making, they have really, I would say, strong understanding of the different interests and issues and the needs in the community. Would be, I think, a contact that could help you get a better understanding of lots of the other things that you're learning as well.
Yeah, because they see all the grant proposals that come in, and they're not funding everything, but they'll know what the needs are. So, the proposals for in staff for underprivileged kids, it's only from one with a huge need, or really have their figure out a call.
Think about, I've kind of been envisioning you talking to a contact through the course of it, one here and one there, exploring different capitals, but that would be the case, but I wouldn't limit it to the capital you're looking at that week, because some of these people will be issues or at least be able to provide some perspective. So you might kind of have a list looking through your assessment of things that you would touch base with each on. And when I think you want to be clear, you're not for, and I think you have to keep that in mind, a 5-hour interview, but could I have a half hour or an hour of your time just to check some questions that I have? So, broadly.
So in week 6, you've identified 2 people that you want to talk to about natural capital, and they're both on vacation. That's never talk to them. So you talk to the state,
Yeah.
it's still in the hole. We talk to them.
Exactly.
So try to keep it. It won't be completely perfect, so it's okay.
And here's some things to give some thought to as you're looking at, are there natural amenities of the region? And sometimes, again, they're not so, it might be obvious to you as someone coming in than someone who's had them there their entire life, not really thought them as an asset in the region. So, I think of, I gave an example in March before, last week when we were talking about it, that locals may see that as an infested area where bird watchers might think of that as a really cool opportunity to come out for, or something. So again, what could it be turned into? So how these or assets shape the community or region? So really just to guide you through it and thinking about it, and then again, here's to figure out those assets through the activity. So go for a walk, get out, hike trail that's there. There's farmers, that's a natural aspect in terms of the ag land. Go to a farm bureau meeting and talk some of the assets. Okay.
And then to add to that too, and see how farmers are or are not working with maybe the DSOC on the abut farmers and natural areas, and is there who's are they working together to between and protect? Because there's sometimes there's some controversy around that.
So the examples we're giving you are getting down to the nitty-gritty. We're expecting that you are going to do another, where you will do necessarily ask that exact question. These are examples. Again, you're asking it. You ask what's important to you as you shape it, but we're trying to think about the opportunities to these issues. Capital, again, capital being the infrastructure that supports the community. Didn't go up there. I guess telecommunication facilities for certain broadband is a big issue. Does the entire community or region we're in have access to online opportunities? What are some of the other things that they have or don't have? And I think that these are the kind of things that are most often covered in newspapers. I think we talk a lot about that in the context of supporting economic development. That might be a way to explore these kind of issues for sure. So, talk to a local legislature or the regional economic development or plan office. What are some of the things that they're taking in mind? One thing I didn't think about and that we haven't talked about, but one way to get at, and maybe that's something we should add to our profile in the future, but start looking at comprehensive plans. And some kind of in the side of the community, they may or may not have that. They may or may not have that posted online. But a lot of times they are housed at the county level, and they go through kind of a visioning process as they develop and update their plans, and that can give you a real sense of what some of the views, goals, desires, interests of the team are. So that's another way to help get that bigger picture perspective. And a big part of that. So social capital, same kind of thing. I think this gets more interesting though, because it really does ask you to think about, how are people relating to one another? What of their relationships are they using those relationships for the betterment of the community? They shared passions, or is it more just kind of going through the motions of stuff that you have to be part of a community? So you can monthly a local legislator go through this basic stuff, they're more proactive in implementing, working together to implement the goals of the community. Kind of timeline.
A different example too. I was in town of Ithaca that has a really tight neighborhood association, and it's used as probably the I don't know what to say, but a communicative and supportive neighborhood in the town. And so you may find something like that where it's not community wide. You might see there's like a little pocket of the community living and it has this visual neighborhood association or something. The neighborhood could model or emulate with unique features, but this is a draw to me as a young person, and this really makes it work over here. No reason it could work over here. Tweak to make it. So the smaller cases, so this is wide. I think it's my fun.
Find that it isn't happening in certain neighborhoods, and there may be reasons behind how could those things be overcome that are preventing it, because it is possible, right? So again, some activities of attend to meet of a social group, and it'll be really important if you're coming in as an outsider to come somebody and say, this is what I'm doing, would you mind if I did? Or if your host attends one of these things, you might say, attend one of these meetings, could I tag along with you so you have an entree into it as opposed to just coming out cold. Seems uncomfortable. If something uncomfortable for you to go and say, here I am, I want to listen, then, okay. Political capital. Same kind of, same I do, and then be able to get a better sense of what it's about. We can, if we pull it all back together, so we're seeing this as a chance to catch up, finalize anything that you might not have completed in your community capacity assessment. There may be some answers that aren't. Can you go back that you skipped over and fill in more? Again, I want to be clear with that. We want you to take that tool as far as you can, but you may not be able to finish it. And we talked with the guy who was the lead on creating this tool at the university with me, I'm sure. We want you to be clear, he typically used this tool. He's excited about us using it in this way, but he typically used it with groups of community that, people in that place that are looking to think about new ways and that they can do in their community. They're talking about visioning and that kind of thing, and they're using it as an assessment to look across all of their different development areas in the community, and they even do it individually with those folks. They usually come together as a group to complete it. You guys are using it in kind of a new way, but we think it can be helpful for you as well with that kind of guide to thinking about all of the components of the community. So,
yeah, when you do this survey, you're coming at it from sort of a newcomer to the community. So the results of your are really communicating interest in how do we come across ourselves? How do we someone just walk through our main street? What they see first? So I know it. It's about so your is going to be very important.
So what we'll have you do is plug that stuff in online, or if we can't get it all in online because of the way the tool is set up, is you do have to complete each question. So we'll see how far you get with that, but we do have the keys so we can code it, and we'll have you go and kind of do this, plug all the information in essentially. So again, this is probably hard to imagine, and we'll show it to you in a minute.
Right now.
The strengths and weaknesses of what you found, and it spits it back out to you essentially. So engagement activity, this last week is an opportunity to finish up anything that, maybe you've learned about something over the course of time. You think, gosh, I'd really like to check that before I leave, or I'm still a little bit fuzzy about the assets in this capital area. There'll be an opportunity in that last week, the 8 hours, is to follow up with your community contacts to thank them for their time. So you'll be in touch to share what you've learned so we can do poster. And we have to confirm this, but we're thinking that we will be able to invite them to come to the forum and do your presentation. So and hopefully that'll be useful. On the forum, we're kind of bring us back. So you've had this learning action plan, you've had these other goals. Did you admire why not? If anything, what wasn't complete, what might you still do with that? How has it impacted you? What questions about your community remain? To wrap up that summer experience and moving into the synthesis phase back in the fall and have you put it all together. The questions we talked about, it'll be standing across the week to that discussion. So kinds of use that we have relative to this cap. So we're participating, we will say, oh, well, maybe, or we have some hiking trails. Is there anything that is really distinctive about the hiking trails in your particular area that somebody else's hiking trails aren't going to include? Assets, remember we talked about one of the things with the community capitals, idea that you think in new ways and then you start putting them together in new ways which create new assets. So given do you see any opportunities to create new capitals either in this area or across the capital areas based on what you've learned about in your successive capitals this week? Important is these assets in your life, in this community, from the perspective as a young professional? Anything of note about the host community relationship in this capital area? That was going back to Robin's earlier point about thinking there. Missing, is there anything that you're thinking as a young professional that whatever what you've seen, maybe what you've seen in your own community, or just being there that you're thinking, gosh, while I'm here, I really wish I had. I don't have that here, or something like that. But I would say,
you want to dream and you want to be creative, but it's, people come to Ithaca and say, they want an international airport and they want, they just want everything, but it's still 35,000. So it's not in New York City, and they're not meant to be something that's not.
Okay.
So it's still within the parameter, size, scale, location, but you can't.
Because I think that can be passed. But again, you've explored the flavor of this community. We're proposing fit in with what most people in there want. With a good fit. So, so this is just that assessment tool that we wanted to go into a little bit more detail. So again, we said it's a web-based assessment of community assets. It is actually fits very nicely with the community capitals framework, but it was actually came out before the community capitals framework stuff was actually published. We learned from Charlie, and it was I don't know if you're familiar with it. I am not, but I do want to look into it. That's where to at heart, where they help together. I mentioned that it's designed to help civic leaders measure their capacity for the following community attributes, or at least understanding what they have in those 6 areas. And respondents received provides a rough indicator of what they have and how they might improve across those areas. They may not want to improve, but it's really, I think of it as a smart tool to assess what's there. These are examples of some of the questions. Supporting family-oriented programs or opportunities are available in your community. Check all that apply. will give you like 3 different options. I'm trying to think of what you have. We have networks. We have many strong social organizations. Yes, we have some social organizations. No, we have many social organizations. Depending on the check, you basically get a score for each of these responses. That goes back into the instrument, and based on your, again, based on your responses to the cultural and historical heritage survey, the strengths and opportunities of your community are. So you've got this set of, but you've got opportunities because of those that you kind of said you didn't have to promote your community's historic and cultural assets. So the weaknesses are promoted as opportunities, and the strengths are noted.
This is sort of a comment to your capital expedition. So this group is separate in terms of some of the ideas, but it's a separate activity that you'll add to every week. Just want to make sure that it's this. Are we confusing? Confusing? It sounds like we're asking them to do another 3-hour work week. You're on 40 hours a week, and that's full. So the host 8 with us on this piece. So, it seems like the first couple weeks that there's no way you can finish in 8 hours. We'll have to. So it's a lot. I think it's a lot now, but I'm imagining that after the first week or two, to start to get into a rhythm. So, oh, I know what my questions are, I know kind of how to orient myself. You'll about that.
I mean, as Robin said, we want your feedback because we haven't done it before. We're thinking about it and that it will fit well, but if it isn't, you should give us a heads up so we can modify it accordingly and see what we do. Okay. So this is just, if anybody wants further information about this community capacity assessment, Chappelle, who's out of the we provide you with a little bit more of information and some reading on that and with community work. Okay, so this is just a review of your portfolio. It's not too different from last week. I guess we would be removing the forum reflections from what we shared last week. We're really addressing those forum questions in our discussions each week and checking in with you. That will be more important and prevalent when we're not meeting in person every week. As we said, you're really focusing on this for an half now, then working at 8 hours for the community engagement piece, 40 hours overall. So there'll be a lot more that I think you're taking in at that time, and so that form is going to be more important. It will be a better tool by the time we get there. Okay, portfolio to work. So we keep thinking about all of these pieces that we're adding to this. So you'll be having your community engagement to that list of portfolio stuff, activity engagement activities. You'll be having your community capacity assessment. You'll be having our online forum discussions. We'll be talking to each other. You'll be taking notes. You're going to put it together. First, what we've done during these weeks into your presentation in a couple of weeks. All of it is going into your independent study at the end where you're putting together the report, the post forum presentation. You, again, that week 8 presentation, so just a reminder that it's April 30th. The components asking you to include, and we have decided, you guys that were not here, so just an introduction of a host overview based on your host profile, community review based on the community profile, some of the things that you've noted. So everybody's going to have the same kind of things to include, but it's going to be different because it's going to be a flavor of your community and your host. Things that you've learned about host community connection sites at this point, and what do you want to achieve through the internship program, and then stuff that you've identified as things that you're going to explore during summer. This is all
10 minutes. No, 10 minutes.
That's just to talk about that. So we have guest present. We mentioned that there would be members of the administrative team that's putting this presentation to Robin, but Joe Visacera, our partner from Cal, has asked us if it would be okay if some of his colleagues also attended, so it may be a few more, and they're excited to hear about the things that you're doing as well.
So I would just underscore that we said, but you don't want to just think about it as you're walking here, do we? Okay. Yeah, like together. You want to, we know it's not polished in terms of, you know, everything about your community, you know, everything that we don't. But this is my plan. 2 months, how I see myself fitting in, and these are my goals. We'll have a PowerPoint to sort of guide you, and let me just understand because of the potential guests. So this program is supported by Cal administration. They're really excited to the college because this is what Cal wants to do to help support the and update communities. And so, okay, new insurance. And what we're really pleased about is you're all really energetic, you're all very different, and so we want you to be yourself. Just know that they're excited about it too. I hope I didn't read that.
Yeah, I was going to say, so my impression of you is that yourself isn't somebody that would come in at the last minute and say, oh, it is, this is,
I will say, I don't think the dean is coming, but we're not sure that she will. So let's just say that. I don't think that's an empty sort of thing. It's a possibility.
Late. Your PowerPoint presentation, basically, we will put together 7 slides that you can plug in the information to your thing. We're not going to give you the details of what you're doing, and that's what you've been doing, right? But you have the framework in place.
Overview. I don't think we won't have it here. Yeah. Visit us in our lovely on-site quarters.
The 10 buildings and the
If you haven't been inside, they're actually quite nice inside. So we have a sort of area where we thought we can put up PowerPoint, a little bit more informal atmosphere. Always have some snacks, and then it'll be more of a conversation.
I haven't been able to feed you the entire time, so this is at least fulfilling, yes, except for salt cupcakes, a little bit of fulfilling that. And we just, Robin and I want to make clear, we're tonight and give you a little bit of time to start thinking about, we'll put the up for the presentation so you can plug in some ideas. I don't have the template yet, but just a note. But maybe, depending on how we're able to get done in these 2 weeks, some time that you have to do on your own. If you want to come and talk to us about it, if you have questions, we are here to help support you with that together. Until April 30th, we do want to point out it's probably not better to call us Monday night and ask if we can meet you that Tuesday. Okay, this is just a reminder, again, that the discussion forum,
right?
up on the presentation, it'll be up on the website, but the questions that we've been posting and talking about in class over the last few weeks are really ways to help you shape things that might be in your presentation. So next week, we're going to be focusing on learning action plans. Again, I think the plan is to try to spend 45 minutes, half hour, 5 minutes on that, and working a presentation again. We'll see how that works. So this week's question: do you want to use the capital framework and how you're going to be using it now? Did we want to know how Robert? Did we? Do you feel it now? Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. Brian, in particular, does it feel better at this point? Not to put you on the spot, but
yeah, it feels a lot more concrete.
in particular, kind of, what question
Sure.
about, you already, um, mm,
Yeah.
so it's up to, it's possible to go out.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess our primary way of deciding utilizing resources, maybe do some research on.
I mean, I hope that as you're going through this stuff in your paper, as you are starting to, we actually do the online searches just to see what your community, that you may find them that way too. I think what we'll do though, as I said earlier, we're going to do project overview. I think we'll also probably try to provide you with a list of people that we potential key community contacts. You'll get their contact information, but we'll say, you know, who's the development director or someone in the office that you could to. Mentioned before, the CCE executive director could be very helpful, and we're touching base with them now to let them know that you'll be in their community.
Like community foundation
Yeah.
director, or, you know, kind of too of communities, because then when you meet with them, asking them, anybody that you can take to talk to, maybe another perspective on this. Or I'm going to be exploring natural capital in a couple weeks. Or outdoor beach. Yeah.
With each of that list of activities, we want to do at least one activity. May or may not interview somebody every each of those weeks along that activity. Again, but if you think it would be helpful and you have time and you haven't exhausted your 8 hours, I would go out and talk to somebody. Maybe it's talking to there's a variety of ways that you can, I think, get that kind of information.
And also, I think in some of these communities, in larger region, it's going to be a number 40 group. I know 40 sounds so old, you guys, but there's a chapter in your community, non-professionals, under 50 is still,
70 is still.
you might want to connect with, because this talks again from their perspective of what this region has to offer. Also, it can help you say, because people will probably invite somebody or invite somebody, and if they are on something to do on your capital area, that makes it more clear. Oh, this person.
Thank you. Talking about key contacts, I just thought of one or two people who would be interested in this particular topic. Not that they could address maybe all of the capital or even have an interest in all of the capitals, but they're pretty interested in this type of action. I would put a keep that in mind that you are trying to figure out, because you do want to give back this or this report and invite them to this so that you can share with them. You know, kind of did this issues in your community. Here's what I came up with. Here's what so, you know, everybody, it may or may not be the under 40 group represent or the hiking. So it may be that everybody you talk to is appropriate for that follow-up, but I think you will find a few key people that'll say, hey, keep me posted. I just want to note those who you can engage them. Is that good? Try to put together some sheets to help
If
that.
you're struggling in one of the areas, because you really can't think of who else for weekly conversations.
Yeah.
You guys can get with each other. We want this to be for the community first.
An important part of the forum. So as you're filling that stuff, it might not hurt to just start it off by saying, this is what I did this week, which gives you each ideas to feed off of each other. Okay. It sense is a set of tools for figuring out what's important to you in terms of community and why or why not. Any thoughts people for helping you think about your goals as a citizen in the future? More of a overwhelming now. What are your thoughts now that you know what it is? It seems reasonable. To be honest, we want to help support you through this. So
you made multiple options for the
Okay, okay, is that helpful? Okay. Any thoughts?
that. Like one thing I worry about is that probably won't cause.
Right.
I know most of the other students. So there are options that I may not be traveling. Maybe I can just phone calls, do some research.
Yes.
But try to get out to a few different things.
Let's stay in touch on that because have talked to in that county. There is the executive director of CCE and that they will also have another intern through Cornell Cooperative Extension this time. Maybe we can even put you in touch, and find something like that, or maybe we can figure something out there. But again, if there's another idea that you have for capital that we've said transportation, that you can substitute non-transportation, or you can on a public transportation route, or we're very are starting points for you to give you ideas. Okay. In terms of what more you need, and I guess what we wanted to do.
The weekly presentation, they have that, we got that 20 minutes. So we give you the template for the presentation in 2 weeks that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items there. So there'll be at least 6 slides. Using every little word that you say into these, there'll be a few bullets. I can do the overview. We did profile. If there was of the really strong that we think is relevant, if you remember those text from the profile, if you have trouble doing it, I can show you how to do that. So maybe something that we plug in. The one thing is the population really exploded the last 10 years, or
about this in the context of the rest of the state, or something like that you want to point to. But it's up to pick and choose about what you have found of interest that you've seen so far. So we will be, if you have questions as you're going along, I would just again, I guess we can call it, we should, instead of fees, we should put their memory fees. Do you have them? I know we should be a reminder, but just pull up it and start plug and play and doing that I have posted what you've given me so far, except for I think last week, before I think some people things to their profiles based on just search, and I have not. I think okay. Anyway, there's updates that might not be there, but otherwise, what you've given me is posted up on that class website. So.
This is right from the internship.
Okay. So host community connection insight. So because if you were learning about your host and you were learning about your community, you might have already noticed some ways that they are highly interactive. So what was some things that, for example, on the host profile, we're trying to figure out if they're giving to the community in any way. So maybe that they've started up a fellowship program, or it may be that they are working with young people to familiarize them with or provide education opportunities, something like that. So if you're seeing ways that your host is already heavily engaged in, or maybe just from talking to your host, they mentioned that they like to place their employees, encourage them to engage in community activities or something like that. I think that what are some of those connections? Maybe others, I guess I'm thinking more service oriented, but there may be some others that they're doing something just that.
Okay. So that's
Yeah,
actually
your host and the community, and it could be the region. But again, we're asking you, think, how are they connected? Why is this company in this place? And maybe it's as simple as that. Is there something on their website that says we have a long history here in this community because this is where we started, or we moved back here or stayed here because we love people? What about?
Maybe it doesn't say more.
Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.